everyone, and welcome to my channel built on cinema. My name is Aaron, and on this episode of Movies Matter, we discuss the widely celebrated and deeply human portrait of romantic bliss, the Before Trilogy. The Before Trilogy was partially written by director Richard Linklater with scriptwriting assistance from Kim Kryzan, Ethan Hawke, and Julie Delpy across each respective film from the trilogy. One key word to remember here is trilogy, as none of these films conform to the traditional execution of one. What I mean is that upon concluding Before Sunrise, your first thought isn't exactly to sit and wait for a post-credit scene and wonder which giant, recognizable character is set to appear in its sequel. In fact, your thoughts likely couldn't be further from a sequel. This is because Before Sunrise doesn't justify its existence with what comes after it. Take, for example, The Amazing Spider-Man. Now I know, how could I possibly have one of the greatest pieces of cinema in the same conversation as the Before Trilogy? I'm joking. See, much of the world building established in The Amazing Spider-Man never allows itself to take off because this world building exists at the detriment of the current story. Many of what should be resonant, character-centered moments are squandered by questionable, out-of-character decisions lazily glossed over for the sake of moving on. In other words, we were so focused on rushing to the credits to watch a post-credit scene for the next movie that we didn't even stop to think if the movie we were watching was good. One thing extremely unique about this trilogy is that neither of the first two installments lend themselves to sequels. Each film is a self-contained and polished story, never once requiring you to have watched a previous film in the trilogy, but rewards you with the subtle contextual background if you have. Those who didn't see the previous films don't have to, and the narratives remain equally engaging. I would even go as far as to say that you don't even have to watch the trilogy in order to understand it, because as I mentioned, each film is uniquely independent. The first film of the trilogy, Before Sunrise, was released in 1995 and chronicles the blossoming romance of two strangers who initially couldn't seem more different, but as the story plays out, discover they share much of the same philosophy and outlook on life. Now pit that statement against the state of our characters in Before Midnight, and the previous statement couldn't be further from the truth. At this point, both characters have completely grown up and gained real-life experience. As it pertains to the aforementioned shared philosophy, it's actually this difference in opinion that drives the drama and turmoil of the narrative in Before Midnight, when just 2 films ago was the precise thing that united them. That is the perfect portrait that this trilogy paints. We are not the same people we were when we were growing up. Each of these characters' individual progress and development comes at the expense of their relationship. They're no longer naive teenagers surfing Europe on daddy's money or a college student on a temporary research trip, but rather grown adults with individual ideas. Unlike our beginning in Before Sunrise, neither of these characters have the safety net to fall back on that they're strangers and that there are no stakes if something were to go wrong between them. In fact, it becomes quite the opposite by Before Midnight. Now, I've been very vocal in hailing Before Midnight as the best of this trilogy, not because I'm looking for a favorite, but because it presents viewers with a stark contrast in the spirit and tone of the narrative, juxtaposing its predecessors. What I love most about this film is how it so perfectly captures the nature of life's ups and downs, doing so with brutal honesty. The highs are high, and the lows...
I don't want to live a boring life where 2 people own each other, where 2 people are institutionalized in a box that others created, because that is a bunch of stifling bullshit.
There are elements of both Before Sunrise and Before Sunset in Before Midnight, with a few sequences that recreate the budding romance from its prior installments, such as Jesse and Celine just walking around town talking to each other. Let's go back a step. Before Sunset. This film was released in 2004, which is 9 years after its initial installment. Remember what I was saying about these not lending themselves to sequels? Unlike the bulk of financially motivated sequels released today, Before Sunset clearly demonstrates it has purpose, as it almost seems it was never planned in the first place. Director Richard Linklater touches on this far more in the Criterion Collection release of the trilogy, so definitely check it out if you have the chance. Anyway, here you have an 80-minute film that is a follow-up to a 101-minute film of two people talking? How did this happen? The first film grossed $22.5 million globally, which isn't a smash hit even for the time, despite it making back 9 times its budget. So the answer? Balanced storytelling. What audience were treated to in 1995 was a distinctly balanced portrayal of the beginnings of a romance, completely devoid of the annoying and at times juvenile stereotypes for female characters in these types of films. No hot girl that doesn't know she's hot, no damsel in distress. Celine knows she's an intellectual, knows she has ideas, and knows she has value. And Jessie is meant to accept her as she is, not be the direct reason she has a different personality by the end of the story. Celine isn't treated as an object of Jessie's sexual desires because he respects Celine, and so do the writers. This is a direct product of the balance I just mentioned, in which neither male nor female perspectives are meant to be the right one. Since Linklater made the conscious decision to not only co-write the film with a female writer for equal and balanced input, but also allow Hawke and Delpy to write much of their characterizations, these films glow with authenticity. Even Hawke and Julie Delpy turn in 2 of the greatest performances I've ever seen over the course of the trilogy, each never once coming off as disingenuous at any point. There are plenty of scenes across these 3 films that I forgot I was watching 2 people act, and if that doesn't give you insight as to how well acted these characters are, I don't know what would. Each film in the trilogy capitalizes on a great use of quietness and meditative subtlety in its minimal use of sound, with the first 2 films relying completely on diegetic sounds opposed to a musical score. Before Midnight has an extremely peaceful score composed by Graham Reynolds, with memorable motifs clearly drawing inspiration from the song Celine sings at the end of Before Sunset, which, speaking of that song, might be one of my favorite scenes of all time. My eyes are still recovering. Ultimately, these films convey the heartbreaking reality behind romance in a way wholly unique to this trilogy. These films evoke so much emotion across them, and it's earned. Significant emotional moments don't come off as manipulative, and despite whichever side you may take by the third film, still affect anyone watching. The dialogue is grounded in believability, and nearly every line creates a window into who these characters are. Linklater crafted a masterpiece of a trilogy through a series of complex and innately human ideas that give his characters vivid and expressive characteristics that audiences have fallen in love with since Before Sunrise. I mean, down to its last film, which is narratively divisive among our leads, Linklater, Kryzan, Hawke, and Delpy elect to present you a transformative and poetic experience free of sides, almost to say, this is just how it is. With that, I'd like to personally thank you for checking out this video. It really means a lot that you would even come here and spend some time with me here on the channel. I really hope that this commentary on this trilogy might have given you some insight or an extra opinion, if you've already seen it, as to what some of the thematic elements really mean. And I'm glad we just get to spend some time and talk about a great set of films. So please subscribe if you have not already. Make sure to like the video, leave me a comment letting me know what you think. Have you seen the trilogy? Are you going to watch it? Please come back. I'd love to talk with you guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you later.